I spent 22 years as a warden in the Appalachian woods.
I learned the language of the forest and the rhythm of the wind.
Some places on our maps are anchors for things that shouldn't see the sun. 3 years ago, I was assigned to patrol the ruins of an old cathedral. Locals wouldn't even look toward the valley. They called it the Hollow Grave. My job was just to keep folks out and watch the stone foundations. It was a Tuesday when I heard the knocking. It didn't come from the surface. It came from beneath the stone floor. It was rhythmic and heavy, like a sledgehammer hitting iron. I walked to the center of the nave with my flashlight. That's when a voice rose up from the ground. It wasn't human. It sounded like stone grinding against stone. I told it there were no priests here, just a warden. The knocking stopped instantly. The silence that followed was predatory and expectant. I kept coming back, telling myself it was just my job. But the truth was, I was hooked. It told me stories of the woods before the maps were ever drawn. The giant wanted out and started offering me things. It was seductive, playing on my deepest insecurities. I started bringing tools, telling myself it was just an excavation. On the 7th day, I cleared away the debris. I saw a gap in the stone leading into the blackness. I looked into the void and saw a pale, glowing hand. I stood there with the pry bar, feeling both terrified and ambitious. I looked at the rusted chains on the floor. I raised the bar, and the giant laughed, cracking the walls. As I swung, my flashlight flickered and died. In the darkness, I felt a presence behind me. It wasn't the giant, it was the spirit of the woods. The woods showed me the truth in a flash. I saw the valley from above, and the giant was just a parasite. It wasn't an anchor, it was a leech. I dropped the bar, and it clanged against the stone. The giant screamed in pure rage. The floor beneath me started to buckle. I scrambled toward the exit, my lungs burning. I didn't look back, even when the ground gave way. I ran until I hit the road and my phone finally worked. I filed my resignation the next morning. I couldn't explain what I'd seen. A month later, the valley was declared a total loss. They think it was an aquifer collapse, but I know better. The giant is still down there, waiting. It's waiting for someone else to break the seal. I don't go into the deep woods anymore. I work in a small office now, overlooking a parking lot. It's safe here, away from the shadows. Sometimes when the wind blows, I hear the grinding of stone. I can still feel the temptation of that hand. It's a reminder that we're only guests here. There are things watching us that want us to break the seals. If you find a trail that leads nowhere, don't look for a priest. Just turn around and walk away. Pray that you haven't already invited something in. Do you believe that some things are buried to be imprisoned? Because I do. The memory of that day still clings to me like damp forest air. I remember the weight of the pry bar in my hand, feeling the cold iron against my palm. It was a tool meant for work, but in that moment, it felt like a key to something forbidden. I stood before the crypt seal, the concrete slabs looking like teeth in the floor. The air was thick with the smell of ozone and ancient stagnant water. I knew I shouldn't be there, but the pull was too strong to ignore. The giant's voice was a vibration in my marrow, sounding like stone grinding against stone. It asked for a priest, but all it got was a warden. I felt the weight of the mountain pressing down on me, expectant and hungry. I saw a hand reach out from the darkness of the gap I'd cleared. It was pale, translucent, and covered in pulsing veins that glowed with a sickly light. It didn't reach to grab me, but to beckon me closer into the void. The giant told me the chains weren't iron, but prayers. It said they were the resolve of 100 men who died to keep it bound. If I broke them, the valley would be freed, and I would be its master. I raised the pry bar, my heart racing with a mix of fear and power. I looked at the central link, the one that looked like a jagged, frozen lightning bolt. The giant laughed, a sound that cracked the mortar of the walls. But as I swung, my flashlight flickered and died. In that absolute, suffocating darkness, I felt a presence behind me. It wasn't the giant, but something cold, ancient, and deeply familiar. It was the spirit of the woods, the very entity I had spent my life protecting. It spoke with a memory, showing me the valley from above and the giant as a parasite draining the life from the roots. I dropped the pry bar, and it clanged against the stone, echoing for miles. The giant screamed in rage, a sound that shattered the remaining stained glass windows. The floor buckled, and I scrambled to get out. I ran until my lungs burned, until I hit the paved road. I never looked back. I filed my resignation the next morning, leaving the valley to its fate, and the giant to its eternal hungry wait. A month later, the valley was declared a total loss. A massive sinkhole swallowed the cathedral and the surrounding woods. They think it was just an underground aquifer collapse. I know better than their official reports. The giant is still down there, held by the weight of the earth. It's waiting for another fool to come along with a pry bar. I don't go into the woods anymore. I avoid the places where the trees are old and the silence is too thick. I work in a small office now, overlooking a concrete parking lot. But sometimes when the wind blows from the north, I can still hear the grinding of stone against stone. I can still feel the temptation of that bioluminescent hand. It's a reminder that we are only ever guests in this world. There are things beneath us, around us, and watching us. They'd love nothing more than for us to break the seals. If you find yourself on a trail that seems to lead nowhere, if you hear a voice calling from a ruin that shouldn't be there, don't look for a priest. Just turn around, walk away, and pray. Do you believe that some things are buried in the earth, not to be hidden, but to be imprisoned? It's a question I ask myself every single night. The woods are watching. They've always been watching. And they remember every single thing that's ever been buried beneath them. I'm just a man who walked away. I'm just a man who knows that some doors are meant to stay locked forever. And I'm a man who prays that the lock holds. The silence is heavy.
It's ringing in my ears again. I think it's time to stop talking about it. The office is quiet, but the silence feels different now. It's not the peaceful quiet of a library, but the heavy, expectant silence of the woods. I find myself staring at the wall, waiting for a sound that I know shouldn't be there. I keep my old field jacket hanging on the back of the door. Sometimes I catch the scent of damp pine and wet earth clinging to the canvas. It's a reminder of a life I can't quite leave behind. People ask me why I quit. They think it was just burnout, just the exhaustion of the job. I tell them what they want to hear, because the truth is too heavy to carry alone. I still have the nightmares. In them, I'm back in the nave, and the floor is opening up beneath my feet. I can feel the cold air of the void pulling me down. Sometimes I wonder if I should have finished it. If I had broken that seal, would I be the master of the valley, or just another sacrifice? It's a dangerous thought to entertain. The world outside is so loud. Everyone is rushing, everyone is busy, and nobody notices the things that are waiting in the shadows. They don't know how fragile the ground beneath them really is. I don't talk to anyone about it. Not my coworkers, not my family. They wouldn't understand. They'd think I'd lost my mind, and maybe they'd be right. But sometimes, when I'm alone, I can still hear it. Grinding of stone. The voice that sounds like dry leaves. It's a reminder that the past isn't ever really gone. I'm just a man who walked away. I'm just a man who knows that some doors are meant to stay locked forever. And I'm a man who prays that the lock holds. Do you believe that some things are buried in the earth not to be hidden, but to be imprisoned? I do. And I hope you never have to find out why. I sit in my small apartment, the walls feeling thinner every single day. The city outside is a constant hum of noise, but it can't drown out the memories of that valley. I find myself staring at the floor, wondering if the concrete beneath me is just as fragile as the stone in the nave. Sometimes I think I'm losing it. Just another old man haunted by ghosts that aren't even there. But then the wind shifts, and I swear I can hear that grinding sound again. It's like the earth itself is trying to tell me something I'm not ready to hear. I keep my old gear in a box under the bed, hidden away like a shameful secret. I haven't touched that pry bar in years, but I know exactly where it is. It's a heavy, rusted reminder of the day I almost lost everything. I wonder if the giant is still down there, waiting for someone else to come along. Maybe it's just a story I tell myself to make sense of the madness. But the fear, that's real enough to keep me awake at night. I don't go back to the woods. I can't. The last time I was there, I felt something watching me from the trees, something that didn't belong to this world. I'm safer here, in the concrete, where the shadows don't move on their own. Sometimes I see people on the street who look like they've seen what I've seen. They have that same hollow look in their eyes, that same way of checking their surroundings. We don't speak, but we know. I wonder if the world is just a series of seals, and we're all just walking on top of things that should stay buried. It's a terrifying thought, but it's the only one that makes sense anymore. I try to live a normal life, but the silence of the woods is always there, waiting for me to come back.
It's like a siren song, calling me to return to the place where I almost became something else.
I don't know if I'll ever be free of it.
Maybe the giant is still part of me, a piece of the darkness I brought back from the valley. I just have to hope I'm strong enough to keep it locked away. So, if you ever find yourself on a trail that leads to nowhere, if you hear a voice calling from a ruin that shouldn't be there, don't look for a priest. Just turn around, walk away, and pray that you haven't already invited something in. I sit here in the quiet, staring at the blank wall of my office. The fluorescent lights hum with a sound that reminds me too much of the static I heard in the valley. I try to focus on my paperwork, but my mind keeps drifting back to the dark. Sometimes I wonder if I left a part of myself behind in that cathedral. It feels like a shadow is permanently attached to my heels, waiting for me to slip up. I don't trust the silence anymore. I see the world differently now, like I'm looking through a veil. Every crack in the pavement, every shadow in the corner, it all feels like a potential doorway. I keep my distance from the deep woods, but the woods have a way of finding you. I remember the way the giant spoke, that brittle, dry sound like leaves on gravel. It promised me things I didn't even know I wanted. It knew my insecurities better than I knew them myself. I still have the nightmares. In them, I'm back in the nave, and the floor is opening up beneath me. I can see that bioluminescent hand reaching out, beckoning me to join it in the dark. I wake up sweating, my heart pounding against my ribs. It's always the same feeling, that sense of being watched by something ancient. I have to remind myself that I'm safe, that I'm far away from that valley. I sometimes wonder if the giant is still there, waiting for the next person to come along. It's a terrifying thought, but it's also a reminder of how fragile our world really is. We're just guests here, and we don't know what's beneath our feet. I don't go into the woods anymore. I've seen enough to know that some things are better left alone. I'm content with my small, quiet life, even if the silence is sometimes too loud. If you ever find yourself on a trail that leads to nowhere, if you hear a voice calling from a ruin that shouldn't be there, don't look for a priest. Just turn around, walk away, and pray that you haven't already invited something in. Do you believe that some things are buried in the earth, not to be hidden, but to be imprisoned? I do, and I hope, for all our sakes, that those seals stay strong. I sit here in my office, watching the rain streak against the window pane. It reminds me of the damp, heavy air in that valley. I can't help but wonder if the earth is still holding its breath down there. The silence in this room is different from the silence in the woods. Here, it's just empty. Out there, the silence was waiting for something to happen. I keep my old field jacket in the closet, tucked away in the back. Sometimes I catch a whiff of pine and damp earth when I open the door. It's like a ghost of the man I used to be. I don't miss the isolation, but I do miss the clarity. Out there, you knew exactly what you were up against. Here, everything feels like a lie. I wonder if anyone else hears it. The grinding,
The way the earth shifts when the wind hits the trees just right.
Maybe I'm the only one who knows the language.
I think about that hand sometimes.
The way it glowed in the dark.
It wasn't just a hand. It was a promise. A terrible, beautiful promise. I'm glad I walked away. I really am.
But there's a part of me that wishes I had stayed,
just to see what would have happened if I'd broken that seal. We're all just guests here, aren't we? We build our little lives on top of things we don't understand.
and we pray that the ground stays solid beneath our feet.
If you ever find yourself in the deep woods and you hear something that shouldn't be there, don't look for a priest. Just turn around and walk away. Do you believe that some things are buried in the earth not to be hidden, but to be imprisoned? I do, and I hope for all our sakes that those seals stay strong. I look at the map on my desk, tracing the lines of the valley with a trembling finger. It's just paper and ink, but it feels like a map of a place that shouldn't exist. I can still feel the pull of that valley, a magnetic tug that never really lets go. Sometimes I wonder if the giant is still waiting for me. It's a foolish thought, I know, but the silence in my apartment feels heavy, like it's holding its breath. It's the same kind of silence I felt in the nave before the floor started to groan. I keep my old flashlight on the nightstand, even though I don't need it anymore. It's a heavy, cold piece of metal that reminds me of the weight of my choices. I catch myself gripping it when the wind howls outside, just like I used to in the woods. I remember the smell of the ozone when I first broke the seal. It was sharp, metallic, and ancient. It's a smell that never really leaves your clothes, no matter how many times you wash them. I still catch it sometimes, in the middle of the night. The giant promised me power, but it was just a trap. It wanted to use me to break the final seal, to let it loose on the world. I was just a tool in its hands, a means to an end. I'm lucky I realized that before it was too late. I don't go back to the valley. I don't even look at the photos I took. They're just static, a high-pitched whine that makes my head ache. I've buried those memories deep, just like the giant is buried in the earth. Sometimes I think the woods are still watching me. Even here, in the middle of the city, I feel like I'm being observed. It's a prickle on the back of my neck, a reminder that I'm never really alone. I pray that the seals hold. I pray that no one else finds that valley, that no one else hears that voice. It's a heavy burden, knowing what's down there, but it's a burden I have to carry. We're all just guests here, aren't we? We build our little lives on top of things we don't understand, and we pray that the ground stays solid beneath our feet. I just hope my prayers are enough. Do you believe that some things are buried in the earth not to be hidden, but to be imprisoned? I do. And I hope, for all our sakes, that those seals stay strong. Because if they don't, we're all in trouble. I sit in my small office, staring at the blank wall. The silence here is different from the woods, but it still feels heavy. I wonder if the giant is still down there, waiting for someone else to come along. Sometimes I catch myself listening for that grinding sound. It's like a memory that won't fade. I know it's just the wind,
but it sounds so much like stone against stone. I look at my hands, the same hands that held that pry bar.
They're steady now, but I can still feel the weight of the iron.
I'm glad I let it go. The valley is gone now, swallowed by the earth. They call it a sinkhole, but I know it's a grave. It's better that way, hidden from the world. I don't miss the woods.
Not the deep ones, anyway.
I've seen enough to know that some places are meant to be left alone. We're just guests here, living on borrowed time. We build our lives on top of secrets, hoping they stay buried.
But sometimes they don't.
If you find yourself on a trail that leads nowhere, turn around. Don't look for answers. Just walk away and pray you haven't invited something in. I still think about that hand. Pale, pulsing, and reaching out. It was a promise of power, but it was really a cage. I'm just a man who walked away. That's all I am. And I hope that's enough to keep the seals strong. Do you believe that some things are buried in the earth not to be hidden, but to be imprisoned?
I do.
And I hope you never find out why.